Okay, Rich Van Tassel here with you, giving you the recap for Week 17, the final week of the season. We're going to start right with the New York Jets, who had a disappointing end of their season. They lost to Buffalo 22-17. The Jets were eliminated from the playoffs when the Steelers won. Buffalo got to 8-8 to finish the season at 500. The box score for the Jets: Ryan Fitzpatrick, terrible, 16 of 37, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So his turnover woes cost the Jets, and at their very worst time. Chris Ivory ran the ball very well. 6 carries, 81 yards, 13.5 yards per rush. Stephen Ridley, 9 for 29. Altogether, the team was 17 of 122, 7.2 yards per rush. Brandon Marshall showed up. 8 receptions, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Eric Decker, 5 for 50 and a touchdown. Darrelle Revis recovered a fumble. The Jets had only 2 sacks, no interceptions. Randy Bullock was 1 for 2 in his field goals. For the Bills, Tyrod Taylor, 18 of 28, 182 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He was their top rusher, 10 carries, 51 yards. That's 5.1 yards per rush, had a rushing touchdown. Mike Gillislee rushed the ball 24 times for only 28 yards. Carlos Williams, 6 for 24. Altogether, the team 43 of 113, 2.6 yards per rush with the 2 touchdowns. Carlos Williams had the other one, so they were able to stick with the running game because they were able to get up. But you usually don't see a team run the ball that much when they're only running 2.6 yards per carry. Sammy Watkins, 11 receptions, 136 yards. No touchdowns. Greg Salas, 3 for 41. Mike Gillislee fumbled and was lost. Tyrod Taylor fumbled and was not lost. They only had 1 sack. A.J. Tarpley, Manny Lawson, Leotis McKelvin had 3 interceptions. Dan Carpenter was 3 for 3 in his field goals. So the Jets, you could tell they just came out with a complete lack of focus in this game. They, were awful in the first quarter, dropping passes, things like that. Had the missed field goal early on. It just completely got away from them because they were not prepared to play. And this is what happens when you're not prepared to play. And Ryan Fitzpatrick was forced to throw the ball a lot late, and that's where the turnovers came in. And Buffalo made all the crucial plays when they had to. So give the Bills credit. They finished 8-8. I had them at 9-7 out of the playoffs though. So basically right where predicted Buffalo. The Jets were better than I had them this year, but this loss has really got to sting for them because there was no reason they should have lost this game. All right, the team that clinched the playoffs in the AFC, the last wild card spot was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat the Cleveland Browns 28-12. Cleveland drops to 3 and for 13. About a minute after this game ended, Cleveland fired their coach Mike Pettin and their GM. It really wasn't a minute, folks. I'm just saying that for effect. It was a little like 2 hours, but Cleveland, another terrible year. The box score for the visiting Steelers: Ben Roethlisberger, 24 of 36, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Fitzgerald Toussaint was the top runner, 12 carries, 24 yards. That's because D'Angelo Williams, who had 5 carries for 8 yards, went out of the game. Who knows if he's going to be ready to go for the playoffs. Altogether, the team was 19 of 30, 1.6 yards per rush. Not very good there. Antonio Brown, another sensational game, 13 receptions, 187 yards. 1 touchdown. Darius Hayward-Bay, 2 receptions for 74 yards. Marcus Wheaton, 3 for 57 and a touchdown. And Heath Miller also had a touchdown. Antonio Brown lost the fumble. Arthur Motes and Brandon Boykin both recovered fumbles. The team had 7 sacks, which is very impressive. William Gay and James Harrison both had interceptions. Chris Boswell, 2 for 3 in his field goals. Austin Davis got the start for the Browns. He went 24 of 46, 240 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Isaiah Crowell, 15 carries, 53 yards, 3.5 yards per rush. Austin Davis, 3 for 22, 7.3 yards per rush. The team overall, 23 carries, 86 yards, 3.7 yards per rush. Gary Barnidge was the top receiver, 8 receptions, 66 yards. Travis Benjamin, one of the lone bright spots for the Browns, 5 for 53, so he was held in check. Darius Jennings, 6 for 45. Austin Davis lost the fumble. Raheem Mostert lost the fumble. Darius Jennings fumbled that was not lost, and Craig Robertson recovered a fumble. Team did not have any sacks. Craig Robertson and Jordan Poyer both had interceptions. Raheem Mostert, 5 for 120 in the kick return. That's 24 yards per return. That's pretty good. Travis Coons made all 4 of his field goals. So Pittsburgh got some a stay of execution, so to speak. They'll be going to the playoffs because Buffalo was able to help them out. Certainly, you've got to look at them as being dangerous with the way their offense has been playing. D'Angelo Williams could be hurt, so you got to wonder what they're going to do about that. And Ben Roethlisberger is going to have to throw the ball a lot in the playoffs, so he's going to have to limit his turnover, especially if D'Angelo Williams can't go, but they've been throwing the ball a ton anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh can muster being a road team all the way throughout the playoffs, no matter what, because they were the sixth seed in their conference. Let's see what they can do moving forward. All right, the New England Patriots lost to the Miami Dolphins 20-10. Miami moves up to 6-10. New England drops to 12-4, and they drop to the 2 seed. Tom Brady 12 for 21, 134 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, went 1 for 4 for 6 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Steven Jackson, the top rusher, 14 of 35. Brandon Bolden, 9 for 31. The team altogether was 27 of 70, 2.6 yards per rush. And the touchdown that Steven Jackson had. James White, top receiver, 2 receptions, 63 yards. Steven Jackson, 1 for 20. Tom Brady fumbled, it was not lost. The team had 1 sack, no interceptions. Stephen Gostkowski actually missed a field goal. He went 1 for 2. He usually doesn't ever miss. Ryan Tannehill now for the Dolphins, 25 of 38. 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Lamar Miller, the top runner, 19 carries, 60 yards. Ryan Tannehill, 3 for 17. That was 3.2 and 5.7 yards, respectively. Team altogether, 34 for 96, 2.8 yards per rush. Devontae Parker, the top receiver, 5 for 106. Greg Jennings, 4 for 74. Jarvis Landry, 6 for 72. Jamil Douglas fumbled, it was not lost. The team had only 2 sacks, no interceptions. And Andrew Franks was 2 for 3 in his field goals. Now, Miami generally has some success with New England down there in Miami, and this is one of those games that looked like it. I'm not sure. The Patriots definitely needed to win this game because they slipped out of the number 1 spot with a loss. They just did not seem focused all game long. I don't know what happened, but it came, the chickens came home to roost on this one because they lost the game and they dropped out of the number 1 seed. So it was very interesting how poorly New England played in this game. They'll have to move forward. Miami, a lot like Buffalo. We didn't mention this with the Bills before. I mean, these were 2 teams. If they played this well the whole season, the year would have been a lot different. Now, obviously, you can't put too much stock into this Miami game because it didn't look like New England came out ready to play. But when you look at Buffalo, I mean, Sammy Watkins, the game he'd been up and down all season long. Um, the division probably would have spelled out a lot differently had these teams actually lived up to their potential. Miami certainly had a lot going forward as well as Buffalo, so that's just what happens at the end of the season. All right, next up, the New Orleans Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons 20-17. The Saints quietly got up to 7-9. Give them some credit because they started out 0-3. Might have even been 0-4. So it just shows that there's plenty of talent on this New Orleans team. Atlanta drops to 8-8. They start out 5-0. So really a terrible way to finish for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think a lot of teams like the Cowboys, Giants, and the Eagles are probably looking at the losses they had to the Falcons and wondering, well, what would have happened had we beat them? They were just caught them at the wrong time early in the year. Drew Brees, 32 for 42, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Tavares Cadet threw a pass. It was incomplete. Tim Hightower was the top rusher, 16 for 66, 4.1 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Altogether, the team was 22 of 67, 3 yards per rush, and the touchdown. Brandon Coleman, 5 receptions, 81 yards. Tavares Cadet, 6 for 77. Benjamin Watson, 6 for 59. Watson had the touchdown. Tavares Cadet lost the fumble. John Jenkins recovered a fumble. The team had 1 sack. Jamarco Sanford had an interception. Tavares Cadet, 2 returns for 75 yards. That's 37.5 yards per return. That's pretty good. Kai Forbath made both of his field goals. Matt Ryan, 24 for 36, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Devontae Freeman, possible Offensive Rookie of the Year, 24 for 81, 3.4 yards per rush. Teron Ward, 1 for 11. The team was 26 of 92, 3.5 yards per rush. Julio Jones, big-time game, 9 receptions, 149 yards. Jacob Tamme, 4 for 61. Tony Moeaki, 2 for 47, 1 touchdown. Devontae Freeman lost a fumble. Matt Ryan fumbled, it was not lost. And Robert Alford recovered a fumble. No sacks, no interceptions. Shane Graham went 1 for 2 in his field goals. So we'll start with New Orleans first. We'll see if there's any changes to the coaching staff made. They obviously fired Rob Ryan. They have to improve that defense. I'm talking about Sean Payton here, though, if he gets fired. It's tough to say because he has won a Super Bowl there, but you just never know because of how poorly they've been playing the last couple of years. Atlanta, Julio Jones had a big year. They have to be disappointed when you start off 5-0 and you can't make the playoffs one, but can't even finish above 500. That's really disappointing. Devontae Freeman, his injuries, I think, played a part in that. He had a very good season, but again, Atlanta just cannot be happy with the way they finished that this season. Completely inexcusable. And like I said, I think teams that lost to Atlanta early on, especially those in the NFC East, I think it really hurt a lot of those teams that didn't end up winning the division because a win here or two there really could have made the difference early on. All right, the Baltimore Ravens lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. A disappointing year for the Ravens. They dropped to 5-11. Cincinnati improves to 12-4. Ryan Mallett put the ball up 56 times, completed 30 of them, 292 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Javoris Allen, 15 for 38, 2.5 yards per rush. Terrence West, 5 for 17, 3.4 yards per rush. The team altogether, 21 of 59, 2.8 yards per rush. Kamir Aiken had a pretty good year for the Ravens this year, considering all the injuries to their quarterbacks. 5 receptions, 76 yards. Jeremy Butler, 6 for 57. Max Williams, 6 for 53. No fumbles either way for the Ravens. 3 sacks, no interceptions. Colleen Clay, 5 returns for 121 yards. That's 24.2 yards per return. That's pretty solid, but one of them was a 35-yard return. So that skews the numbers upwards just a bit. And also, you don't want to be returning the ball 5 times. Justin Tucker made all 3 of his field goals. A.J. McCarron, 17 for 27, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jeremy Hill, 16 carries, 96 yards, 6 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Giovanni Bernard, 6 for 36. That's also 6 yards per rush. The team was 27 of 145. That's 5.4 yards per rush. And a touchdown. That includes A.J. McCarron taking the knee 3 times for only 2 yards. So very good job running the ball. Tyler Eifert, the top receiver, 4 for 51. 1 touchdown. Marvin Jones, 5 for 38. A.J. Green, 4 for 34. He had a touchdown. Mohamed Sanu fumbled, but it was not lost. Team had 1 sack. Raymond Luga and Vontaze Bursovic both had interceptions, both linebackers. Mike Nugent made his field goal. So Cincinnati, reports this morning are that A.J. McCarron is expected to start the playoff game next week instead of Andy Dalton, who's still recovering from that injury. McCarron's played well enough. Let's see what they can do. Let's see if A.J. McCarron can be the one that finally gets this team a playoff win. They have the Steelers, though, so they are certainly not looking forward for that. As for the Baltimore Ravens, just take this season, put it behind you. Some injuries. I mean, they were probably already out of it when Joe Flacco went down, but hey, this team had been successful and they just had a down year, so you just got to take it and move on from here. For Baltimore, I expect them to be fine moving forward once they get Joe Flacco back, and we know this team knows how to assemble a winning program there. The Jacksonville Jaguars got pounded by the Houston Texans. The Texans win 30-6. Give Houston credit; they are now 9-7, quietly flying under the radar. They've gone 7-2 in their last 9 games. A very interesting team, especially the way their defense has finally got it together. We'll go to the Jaguars first. Blake Bortles held in check, 17 for 32, 239 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Jonas Gray, the top rusher, 9 for 23, 2.6 yards per rush. The team was 14 of 32, which is 2.3 yards per rush. Allen Robinson had another good game, 5 receptions, 108 yards. Mercedes Lewis, 1 for 45. Marquise Lee, 3 for 30. Allen Hurns, only 3 for 17. Blake Bortles fumbled twice, lost one of them. Denard Robinson lost his fumble. The team had 2 sacks. Devon House had an interception. Nick Marshall, 3 returns for 83 yards, 27.7 yards per return, with the top being 36. So that skews it a bit upwards, but still a good job returning the ball. Jason Myers, 2 for 2 in his field goals. Brian Hoyer was able to go and get the start, 25 for 40, 249 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jonathan Grimes threw a pass that was incomplete. Alfred Blue running the ball, 21 of 102, 4.9 yards per rush. Akeem Hunt, 3 for 28. Jonathan Grimes, 4 for 26, 6.5 yards per rush, had a touchdown. Altogether, the team was 31 of 160, just 5.2 yards per rush, and the touchdown. Very good job running the ball for Houston. DeAndre Hopkins, he's had a very good season this year, 7 for 89. Jalen Strong, 6 for 56. Jonathan Grimes, 4 for 28. He had a touchdown receiving as well. Brian Hoyer fumbled, did not lose it. J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless both recovered fumbles. J.J. Watt had 3 sacks. The team altogether had 8. Kareem Jackson and Andre Howe had an interception as well. Nick Novak, 3 for 4 in his field goals. Start with Jacksonville here. They got to 4-6. We're certainly in that playoff race in what was a poor AFC South. They finished 1-5. They cannot be pleased about that. I didn't expect Jacksonville to be much better than 6-10. They were 5-11. However, I expected them to show improvement this year, which they were showing. But the way they finished, you can't be happy about that. And that's really going to leave a bad taste in Jacksonville's mouth going into next year. I think if they finish better, you're possibly looking at this team as a playoff contender going into next season. But they're obviously going to have to start the year better, and they're going to have to finish the year better if there's any hope for this team. Blake Bortles played well. They found something with him and Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. I'd address the running back situation maybe a bit. See if TJ Yeldon can go, but Jacksonville can't be happy with what they finished. And the Houston Texans, I had them 9-7 or wild card team. They were 9-7 won the division. That defense is finally coming along. It had been disappointing early in the year. That's why they got off to their 2-5 start and they were killing me. But once the defense finished it out, hey, this team is as dangerous as anyone. Can Brian Hoyer carry the team? Probably not, but is he going to have to? Because of the way this defense is playing? Well, that remains to be seen. Look out for Houston Texans going down the stretch here. Alright, the Indianapolis Colts were able to defeat the Tennessee Titans 30-24. Tennessee drops 3-13. Indianapolis misses the playoffs at 8-8. Alex Tanney got the start, 10 for 14, 99 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. This is for Tennessee. Zach Mettenberger went 5 for 13, 38 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Actually, Mettenberger got the start. Tanney came in for him. David Cobb running the ball 19 for 73, 3.8 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Delaney Walker ran the ball 1 time for 36 yards. Don't often see your tight end running the ball, especially for 36 yards. The team altogether 27 of 137, 5.1 yards per rush. Zach Mettenberger and David Cobb had the touchdowns. Delaney Walker was the top receiver, 9 for 94. Dorial Green-Beckham 2 for 21. He had a touchdown. Harry Douglas fumbled. It was not lost. The team had only 1 sack. Belonged to David Bass. Denoris Cersei had an interception. Ryan Suckup made his field goal. For the Colts, Josh Freeman, we had a Josh Freeman sighting yesterday, went 15 for 28, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ryan Lindley, 6 for 10, 58 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Frank Gore, 19 for 76, 4 yards per rush, 8 for 24 for Josh Freeman, that's 3 yards per rush. The team was 32 for 127, which is 4 yards per rush. Kobe Fleener, 7 receptions, 88 yards, a touchdown. Andre Johnson, 4 for 46. He had a touchdown. The team had 4 sacks. Jarrell Freeman had an interception. Adam Vinatieri, 3 for 3 in his field goal was Tennessee. They have really been a pretty bad team for a couple years now. We'll see if they can develop more going into next year with Marcus Mariota. Certainly they didn't win many games with him and lost the last 2 without him. Indianapolis, disappointing way to finish the year. I expected a lot more out of this team, obviously. Andrew Luck being hurt really hurt them. No pun intended there. Let's see if Chuck Pagano fires this. I would expect he will not. However, I don't know if it's really fair to fire him because Andrew Luck hasn't played in the past 2 months. But this team did get off to a bad start with him. A lot of turnovers. We're going to have to see what happens with Indianapolis going forward, what they're going to do with their coaching staff. Certainly there's some talent on this roster. They do have to address their defense. Tennessee has a lot of work to do. The Washington Redskins beat the Cowboys to finish above 500 at 9-7. They were obviously the division champions and were locked into that spot. Didn't need to win this game, but they still came out and played well. I guess they wanted to finish above 500, which they did. Cowboys dropped to 4-12, and this season from hell for the Cowboys is over. Kirk Cousins, 12 for 15, 176 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Colt McCoy came in and went 7 for 11, 128 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. Alfred Morris, 19 carries, 100 yards, 5.3 yards per rush. Pierre Thomas, 7 for 30. The team altogether 36 of 146, which is 4.1 yards per rush. Jamison Crowder, 5 receptions, 109 yards, a touchdown. Rashad Ross, 2 for 71 and a touchdown. Pierre Garçon's 3 for 49 and a touchdown. Ryan Grant also had a touchdown. Colt McCoy fumbled. It was not lost. Jordan Reed fumbled. It was not lost. Chris Baker recovered a fumble. The team had 4 sacks. Will Compton and Will Blackman both had interceptions. Dustin Hopkins, 2 for 2 in his field goals. Kellen Moore, 33 for 48, 435 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Frankly, I'm surprised he only threw 2 interceptions, considering how much they were running or throwing the ball with him. Darren McFadden went over 1,000 yards, gives McFadden some credit. 12 carries, 92 yards, 7.7 yards per rush. He's been professional all season in a completely awful year for the Cowboys. Robert Turbin, 2 for 6. Team was 16 for 100, 6.3 yards per rush. Terrence Williams, I guess he picked a poor time to show up. 8 receptions, 173 yards. Had he done a lot better with Brandon Weeden when he was playing. When Des Bryant was hurt, maybe this team would have stuck with Weeden and wouldn't have had such a bad year, but that's in the past now. Bryce Butler, 4 for 60. Jason Witten, 6 for 58. Darren McFadden lost the fumble. Kellen Moore lost the fumble. The team had 1 sack, no interceptions. Lucky Whitehead, 3 returns for 70 yards, 23.3 yards per return. Dan Bailey did not kick any field goals. So, the Redskins, Kirk Cousins has really been playing well. They've started winning some road games now down the stretch, which looks good for them. They finished 3-5, and they were 0-5 at one point, or maybe, I think it was 0-5. They might have been 1-5, but got to give them credit because they're going to have to play a lot of road games in the playoffs. They do have the first game at home. They finished above 500, and let's see if Kirk Cousins, he's playing very hot right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Washington Redskins can keep this going into the postseason. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the New York Giants 35-30. Philadelphia finishes 7-9. The Giants dropped to 6-10. Sam Bradford, 30 of 38, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. DeMarco Murray, 12 carries, 69 yards, 5.8 yards per rush, and a touchdown. It was a 54-yard touchdown rush, so he didn't do anything outside of that. Darren Sproles, 3 for 24, 8 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. 26 of 120 for the team, 4.6 yards per rush, and then 2 touchdowns. Zach Ertz, top receiver, 9 receptions, 152 yards. Jordan Matthews, 7 for 54. He had 2 touchdowns. DeMarco Murray lost the fumble. Walter Thurman recovered a fumble. 2 sacks. Josh Huff, Zach Ertz, that's the kick return. They had no interceptions. Caleb Sturgis did not kick any field goals. Eli Manning, 24 of 43, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rashad Jennings, 27 carries, 170 yards, 6.3 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Andre Williams, 5 for 26, 5.2 yards per rush. Altogether, the team was 36 of 208, 5.8 yards per rush, and the 1 touchdown. Had they been able to run the ball like that all season, may have been a different outcome for the New York Giants. Ruben Randall, the top receiver, 4 for 79. Shane Vereen was 6 for 72. Will Tye, 5 for 67. Ruben Randall and Will Tye both had touchdowns. Eli Manning lost the fumble. Tyler Ott fumbled. It was not lost. George Selvey recovered a fumble. Team had 1 sack. Jonathan Casillas had an interception. And Josh Brown made all 3 of his field goals. Gotta look. Odell Beckham Jr. only had 5 receptions for 54 yards, so he was held in check. So, the Giants, are they going to fire Tom Coughlin? We'll have to see what happens. Maybe time for a new voice there. I don't know. Philadelphia, who are they going to bring in to deal with that roster that Chip Kelly assembled for a very niche-oriented offense? It's going to be interesting to see what Philadelphia does. But a lot of question marks with the Philadelphia Eagles. Question marks with the Giants as well, just not as many. Detroit finished the season 7-9. They beat the Chicago Bears 24-20. Chicago 6-10. Matt Stafford, 28 of 39, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Amir Abdullah, 10 for 44 running the ball. The team was 21 of 67, 3.2 yards per rush, no touchdowns. Calvin Johnson, very good game, 10 receptions, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. Drake Bell, 2 for 49. The team had 4 sacks. Tahir Whitehead, Glover Quinn, and James Ahedebo all had interceptions. Amir Abdullah, 4 returns for 64 yards, so nothing of note there. Matt Prater was 1 for 2 in his field goals. Jay Cutler, 17 of 23, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, so he found his turnovers in the last week of the season. Matt Forte, 17 carries, 76 yards. Jeremy Langford, 5 for 14, that's 4.5, 2.8 yards, respectively, per rush. The team was 25 of 108, which is 4.3 yards per rush. Mark Mariani, top receiver, 6 receptions, 80 yards. Joshua Bellamy, 3 for 49. He had a touchdown. Matt Forte also had a touchdown receiving the ball. The team had 4 sacks, no interceptions. Robbie Gould was 2 for 2 in his field goals. Detroit was 1-7. They finished 6-2. Give them a lot of credit for being professional, finishing the year right. They can certainly take this with them in the next year. Again, this was a very good playoff team from last year. Had a couple tough early losses, which I think really hurt them and did not allow them to get traction early on in the season. But they finished up, and they're going to be a dangerous team next year. Chicago, 6-10. What are they going to do with Jay Cutler? He's shown some flashes this year that he may be able to cut down on the turnovers, but this team, again, is not really going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere fast. So we're going to see where they adjust in the offseason. Matt Forte getting up there in age. A lot of question marks with the Chicago Bears. Carolina finished the season 15-1. They pounded Tampa Bay 38-10. Tampa Bay drops to 6-10. Jameis Winston, 29 of 47, 325 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Doug Martin, 15 for 48 running the ball. Charles Sims, 4 for 15. The team was 22 of 77. Jameis Winston did have a running touchdown. It's 3.5 yards per rush for the entire team. Mike Evans, 4 receptions, 99 yards. Charles Sims, 9 for 74. Doug Martin, 7 for 60. Bobby Rainey fumbled and lost his fumble. Levante David recovered 2 fumbles. Team had 4 sacks, no interceptions. Connor Barth made his only field goal. Cam Newton, 21 of 26, 293 yards. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mike Tolbert, 10 carries, 59 yards, 5.9 yards per rush. Cameron Otis-Payne, 14 for 44, 3.1 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Cam Newton ran the ball 6 carries for only 10 yards, but had 2 touchdowns. The team was 32, 1 of 11 running the ball. Devin Funchess, for receiving wise, 7 for 120. A touchdown. Corey Brown, 3 for 58. Jericho Cotchery, 2 for 52, had a touchdown. Brenton Burson, Devin Funchess both lost fumbles. Joe Webb recovered a fumble. The team only had 2 sacks. Robert McClain and Thomas Davis both had interceptions. Graham Gano made his field goal. So Carolina, they're going to have the bye week and the top overall seed in the conference moving forward, so home field advantage the rest of the way. They're going to use the off week to get healthy, and it's going to be interesting to see because Carolina, a lot of question marks with who they beat, strength of schedule and all that, but they are still 15-1. For Tampa Bay, didn't finish the season as well as you would have liked. They're up to about 5-6, I believe, so kind of a poor way to finish. There was even some talks about the playoffs. They might even gotten to 6-6, if I'm not mistaken. But they certainly have the young core. We discussed it in the season previews with Doug Martin at running back, Jameis Winston quarterback, and Vincent Jackson. And they also have some good players on the defensive side of the ball with Levante David and Tony McDaniel up front on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see where they can move from here, but certainly a foundation has been set, and a good job by Tampa Bay to improve the way they had during this season. All right, Kansas City won their 10th straight to move to 11-5. They beat the Oakland Raiders, who dropped to 7-9. I was a little off on the Raiders, but I still think they showed improvement this year. Kansas City, of course, has won 10 straight games. Derek Carr for the Raiders, this is 21 of 33, 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Latavius Murray, 11 carries, 31 yards, 2.8 yards per rush. Derek Carr, 2 for 12, 6 yards per rush. The team was 16 of 48, 3 yards per rush. Clive Wofford was the top receiver, 4 for 46. Michael Crabtree, 3 for 34, had a touchdown. Amari Cooper held in check, 2 catches for 20 yards. Derek Carr fumbled twice, did not lose any of them. The team only had 1 sack. David Emerson, TJ Carey both had interceptions. Tywan Jones, 3 returns for 124 yards, which is 41.3 yards per rush. He did have a 70-yarder. So that really put the numbers very high, but still over 25 yards with the other ones. Janikowski made his only field goal. Alex Smith, 14 of 24, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Cairo Santos threw a pass for 3 yards. That's the kicker, so it must have been a fake or something. Spencer Ware running the ball 16 for 76, 4.8 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Alex Smith 9 for 61. The team was 39 of 189, 4.8 yards per rush, and the Spencer Ware touchdown. Jeremy Macklin 3 for 54. Albert Wilson 3 for 24. This is receiving the ball. Chris Conley 2 for 22. Team had 6 sacks. Ron Parker had an interception. Cairo Santos did not kick any field goals. Alright, so Oakland, Derek Carr, give him a lot of credit. He played very well this season. They certainly have their quarterback finally. Latavius Murray running the ball, a bit of an up and down year. He showed he can handle the workload, though, for the whole season. Had a productive enough year, so they have their running back. And obviously, with Amari Cooper, their offense is set, and you have a guy like Khalil Mack on the defensive side of the ball to really build with. So we'll see how well Oakland can carry what they've done this year into next year. Kansas City, red hot team going into the playoffs. They've won 10 straight games. They will be a road team opening up in the playoffs. They are traveling to play the Texans, so a very interesting game between two teams that have played well. Got off to slow starts, but have played very well down the stretch. So that's going to be one of the better games of this playoff weekend. All right, the Denver Broncos were able to defeat the San Diego Chargers 27-20. Denver got the #1 overall spot with this win. Chargers dropped to 4-12. Could this have been the last game they ever played as San Diego Chargers? We'll see. Phillip Rivers 21 for 35, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Donald Brown 21 of 81 running the ball, 3.9 yards per rush. Javonte Herndon 1 for 13, 13 yards per rush. The team was 29 of 110. Receiving, Tyrell Williams 2 for 90, 1 touchdown. Danny Woodhead 8 for 51. Antonio Gates 3 for 34 and had a touchdown. Phillip Rivers, Dontrell Inman, Javonte Herndon all fumbled, but they were not lost. Jahlil Adai, Damian Square, Steve Williams all recovered fumbles. The team had 2 sacks. Adrian Phillips, Steve Williams had interceptions. Josh Lambo 2 for 2 in his field goals. Brock Osweiler was 14 of 22, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Peyton Manning did come into this game when they were behind and lead them to victory. Went 5 for 9. No touchdowns, no interceptions though, so didn't throw the ball much, as we were seeing early in the year, but he did limit his turnovers. Ronnie Hillman running the ball 15 for 117, 7.8 yards per rush, touchdown. C.J. Anderson 15 for 95, which is 6.3 yards per rush. He also had a touchdown. The team was 32 of 210, 6.6 yards per rush. Demaryius Thomas receiving 5 for 117, 1 touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders 5 for 99. Jordan Norwood 3 for 48. Emmanuel Sanders, Brock Osweiler, C.J. Anderson all lost fumbles. Team had 3 sacks. Von Miller did have one of them, as well as DeMarcus Ware. Shiloh Ko had an interception. And Brandon McManus made both of his field goals. Now, San Diego finished out the string year. They got away from them. Not much you can say there. With Denver, very interesting. What are they going to do going into the playoffs? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't turn to Peyton Manning and let him take over, and Brock Osweiler, poos his pants or craps his pants, so to speak. We'll just say crap. We're all adults here. Then you're going to wonder why you didn't go back to Peyton Manning, who's a Hall of Famer. If Peyton Manning comes in and craps himself, then you're going to say, oh, you should have stuck with Brock Osweiler. It's a very tough one. I think if you're going to go down, you might as well go down with Peyton Manning. But it's a very tough call either way. It's really difficult to say, because I could look at it and say, well, you should just go forward with Brock Osweiler because he's been the best of the two, clearly, playing this year. So, just difficult to see. They have a week to think about it. That's why I expect Peyton Manning to be the starter, because they're going to work him in the off week they have. Okay, Seattle crushed the Arizona Cardinals 36-6. Seattle moves up to 10-6. Arizona drops to 13-3. Russell Wilson 19 of 28, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tavares Jackson 3 for 4 for 28 yards. He got some throws. Christian Michael 17 for 102, 6 yards per rush. Bryce Brown 10 for 20. He had a touchdown. The team was 37 of 145, 3.9 yards per rush. Doug Baldwin, top receiver, 5 for 46. Cooper Helfett, 4 for 42. Tyler Lockett, 2 for 36. No fumbles either way. 2 touchdowns, or 2 sacks, that is, for the defense. Deshaun Shed, Earl Thomas, Jeremy Lane all had interceptions. Tyler Lockett, 4 for 139, returning the ball. That's 34.8 yards per return. 66 was his longest, though. So I put the numbers up. Stephen Howard got 3 for 4 in his field goals. Or that was punt returns for Tyler Lockett, not kick return. Carson Palmer, a very pedestrian game, 12 for 25, 129 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Drew Stanton came in, went 8 for 18, 84 yards. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. David Johnson, 11 for 25, running the ball. Andre Ellington, 2 for 2 yards. The team was 13 of 27, which is 2.1 yards per rush. Larry Fitzgerald, 6 for 55, receiving, 1 touchdown. John Brown, 4 for 45. Jermaine Gresham, 2 for 36. Team had only 1 sack, no interceptions, and Chandler Cantazzaro missed his field goal. Now, I'm wondering if Arizona saw that Carolina was pounding Tampa Bay and they took their foot off the gas pedal, realizing they were locked into that 2 spot, not risking injuries. That's what it would look like to me, because you don't expect them to get pounded like this, and Seattle certainly did not have that much to play for. They come out and just tear apart Arizona like this. So that looks like what it was in this game. Seattle finished the year 6-1. They're certainly as dangerous as anyone going into the playoffs, as well as Arizona. So you could see both these division opponents matching up for the conference championship game, unless Seattle may have to go there if they win. But we'll worry about that later on. Certainly, it's very possible these two teams will meet again in the playoffs. All right, the San Francisco 49ers were able to come from behind and pull off a nice victory over the Rams to finish their season on a high note in overtime, 19-16. For the Rams, Case Keenum, 22 of 37, 231 yards. Johnny Hecker threw a pass. It was incomplete. Running the ball for St. Louis, Trey Mason, 18 for 44, 2.4 yards per rush, a touchdown. Benjamin Cunningham, 4 for 38. The team was 33 of 133. Kenny Britt, 3 receptions, 81 yards. Lance Kendricks, 5 for 37. Benjamin Cunningham, 3 for 34. Trey Mason fumbled. It was not lost. The team only had 1 sack. Eugene Sims had an interception. Greg Zuerlein, 3 for 5 in his field goals. For the 49ers, Blaine Gabbert, 28 of 44, 354 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. DeJuan Harris was their top rusher, 16 for 67, 4.2 yards per rush. Mike Davis, 10 for 34, the team altogether 33 of 108, 3.3 yards per rush. DeJuan Harris was the top receiver, 8 for 86, Anquan Boldin, 5 for 71, Torrey Smith, 5 for 61. Blaine Gabbert fumbled twice, did not lose any of them. The team had no sacks, no interceptions. Phil Dawson went 4 for 4 in his field goal. So you look at San Francisco, a lot of these names you don't even recognize from where they had been in the past. They fired their coach not long after this, Jim Tomsula. Very interesting that they hung him out to dry like that. There's some talks about Chip Kelly. We'll, see that. We're going to do another video talking about all the offseason storylines. St. Louis dropped to 7-9. They had a chance to finish 500. They got to be disappointed. And again, this is another team that may never play in that city again. But difficult way to end the season. They're out of the playoffs yet again. The St. Louis Rams, that is. All right, and then the final game, the Minnesota Vikings were able to win the NFC North by going to Green Bay and winning 20-13. They are 11-5. Green Bay is now 10-6. They were 6-0 at one point, so there's a lot of question marks about Green Bay going forward into the playoffs. Teddy Bridgewater, again, very pedestrian, held in check, 10 for 19, 99 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Adrian Peterson, 19 for 67, 3.5 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Adrian Peterson is the rushing champ. Adam Thielen, 2 for 67, that's 33.5 yards per rush. Jerick McKinnon, 4 for 15. The team altogether 27 of 151, which is 5.6 yards per rush. Jerick McKinnon, the top receiver, 3 for 33. Mike Wallace, 1 for 22. Jarius Wright, 2 for 21. Cordell Patterson lost the fumble. Marcus Scholes, Teddy Bridgewater both fumbled. Captain Munderland recovered a fumble. He returned that for a touchdown, which turned out to be the difference in this game. They had 5 sacks. Everson Griffin had 2 of them. He was playing very well last night. Xavier Rhodes had an interception. Cordell Patterson had a 70-yard kick return. He fumbled on it, though. Blair Walsh, 2 for 2 in his field goals. All right, Aaron Rodgers, 28 for 44, 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Eddie Lacy running the ball, 13 for 34, 2.6 yards per rush. James Starks, 8 for 24, 3 yards per rush. The team altogether 26 of 76, 2.9 yards per rush. James Jones, top receiver, 4 for 102. Richard Rodgers, 7 for 59. He had a touchdown. Devontae Adams, 4 for 54. And Rodgers lost the fumble. Micah Hyde recovered a fumble. 3 sacks. Micah Hyde had an interception. Mason Crosby 2 for 2 in his field goals. Now, Minnesota hosts the playoff game now. They will host Seattle. Green Bay is traveling to Washington to play the Redskins. So what can Green Bay muster? They certainly have to take that Washington Redskins team serious, and they've been poor down the stretch. Minnesota, good way to finally end Green Bay's reign on top of that division. They don't have a picnic either with the Seattle Seahawks, so both of these teams could be eliminated early in the playoffs. We'll have to see, though, but they certainly have to pick it back up and go right back to work because they got playoff games next week. All right, so that is it for the Week 17 recap. That is it for the season. There's no Monday night game tonight, so in a little bit I will probably give you a off-season, just what to look forward to, the way some of these teams finished. I will give you the postseason awards and predictions. We're just going to do game picks for that, but I will give you awards edition sometime later in the week. That's not what this will be. I may not even do this video later. But certainly, that's the end of the regular season, so thank you all for coming with me throughout the regular season as we've done, and we will continue with playoff picks the same as we've always done, so thank you all so much.